It's important to implement these easements because if the above facts that I've told you about aren't enough, consider the global context. If California were a country, its agricultural value would rank between 5th and 9th among countries of the world, depending which currency exchange rates are used, ahead of Canada, Mexico, Germany, and Spain. California's agricultural exports reached an all-time high of 10.9 billion. So, providing these facts, I feel that California's agricultural abundance and need to export goods will provide more than enough jobs than developers can provide, and we could also save our land.
So, there is no problem with the status quo.
Oh, it's over. Yeah, it's over. Moving on. Okay.
It's over. Negative.
Go ahead.
There's no problem with the status quo. Agricultural land conservation easements are highly beneficial to the state of California and are increasing in use every year. GUTSO 2008 and Land Trust have increasingly relied on the conservation easements to prevent the conservation of land to develop uses. By 1990, land trusts have used conservation easements to protect 450,000 acres. By 2000, conservation easements had been used by land trusts to protect nearly 2.6 million acres, representing an almost 5-fold increase in their use. And by 2003, conservation easements have been used to protect more than 5 million acres, tripling the number of acres protected 3 years earlier. As discussed in the following section, the popularity of conservation easements can be attributed to the voluntary nature of the restrictions, the adaptability to the variety of situations, and the range of benefits they provide. And the fact that agricultural land conservation easements in California are perpetual is a positive thing and is highly popular to private land trusts and property owners alike. Duncan stated, unlike most other land use controls, such as the regulation of private property through zoning ordinances, conservation easements are generally intended to last forever or to endure in perpetuity. In only a few decades, the conservation easements has emerged from obscurity and is now one of the most popular methods of preserving open spaces and natural lands. The status quo of land easements in California is currently doing good for the people in our agricultural communities, and there is no significant problem that is going on now. GUTSO 2008 stated private land trusts working closely with property owners to preserve the land through easements have been known to be more effective stewards than government, and numerous studies bear this out. For one reason, land trusts are more flexible than government and more in tune with the needs of the community. Land trusts promote a level of innovation and experimentation in private land conservation efforts that typically is not found in government-controlled land conservation programs. Furthermore, easements, when arranged on a purely voluntary and private basis, absent government's involvement, can harness the forces of self-interest to encourage the efficient use of resources. And currently in California, new opportunities are arising and more benefits are coming out of agricultural land conservation easements due to tax incentives. Duncan also stated, conservation easements are attractive to land trusts because they create new opportunities to protect species and natural communities and reduce the need for state, federal, and nonprofit dollars in the land agreement of protected lands. In addition, conservation easements benefit local communities because properties subject to conservation easements typically remain on local tax rolls. While landowners are able to derive taxable income for the production on working lands and jobs dependent upon resource production, tourism, and other uses are protected. One of the problems with the status quo regarding land conservation easements in California today is that they are perpetual and we cannot predict the future of the land or climate and the effects that they may have on each other in the future. GUTSO 2008 also stated, nature constantly affects the changes that aren't predictable. The very notion that easements in perpetuity are ecologically beneficial contradicts modern views in ecology, which hold that the environment is in a process of constant change rather than in search of a stable end state. For example, a conservation easement intended to protect the habitat of salmon would likely designate an area along a river for spawning and limit development. But rivers change their own course over time. If the area under easement is defined geographically, it will be deemed useless when inevitably the river shifts. And another issue with the status quo is that the more land that is preserved under the easements will cause the rate of housing to continue to go up to the future due to an eventual lack of land to be built upon. Also stated by GUTSO 2008, Another unintended consequence of perpetual conservation easements is the long-term impact that inevitably will have on housing costs. The rapid rate land trusts are acquiring properties, preventing construction of homes far into the future, will in time limit housing availability and push prices up. This already critical issue in California, where 427,000 acres of land are encumbered by conservation easements and where the state contains some of the most expensive real estate in the nation. For decades, there have been a constant struggle pitting farming and grazing needs and the desire for open spaces against the housing needs. With the rapid pace that land throughout the state is being taken out of production by conservation easements, housing costs can only be expected to rise further. And the issue at hand is that the fact that they are flexible at first does not fix the fact that they are not flexible in the end, causing more problems than were previously in place. Duncan stated, traditional conservation easements are flexible during the drafting process but become inflexible once they're signed by both parties. As a result, such statistic conservation easements may fail to adequately accommodate further events such as change in the land itself, changes in landowners' use of the land, or the advance in ecological science. The easements are not only